We love our festivals, but the pandemic has deprived us of the music, the food, and the fun. Hopefully, that will change sooner than later. Learn more about what is being planned to bring back our festivals and when we can look forward to passing a good time at some of our favorite cultural events. Coming up now on Living in the New Normal. Hello, I'm Marcia Kavanaugh. Thanks for joining us for the latest in our continuing series, Living in the New Normal. And in this episode, we're going to talk about what we as a community love to produce and present and attend, festivals. And we certainly have a vast array of them paying tribute to homegrown staples from Louisiana's sweet strawberries to the stuffed to the brim poor boys to salty Louisiana oysters. And, of course, showcasing local musical talent and artists, as well as those from across the globe. But COVID-19 got in the way of all that fun and all of the revenue generated by festivals that flows back into the economy. However, we're looking ahead to better times with the return of two of the biggest festivals this fall. Here to talk about what we can expect, Emily Madero, President and CEO of French Quarter Festivals, Inc., and Don Marshall, Executive Director of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival and Foundation, which, of course, brings us Jazz Fest. Welcome to the both of you. We're anxious to hear what you're going to say.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Because we're ready to go back to the fairgrounds and to the French Quarter to have some fun. First, just give me a brief background on both of your respective organizations. Emily, we'll start with you.
Sure. Well, French Quarter Festivals, Inc. is a nonprofit organization. Our mission really is to celebrate our unique local music and culture by hosting high-quality events that bring our communities together. So we're the nonprofit behind French Quarter Festival. We also host Satchmo Summerfest, which of course is a celebration of Louis Armstrong and his musical legacy. Right. And we host Holidays New Orleans style, where we bring concerts to the New Orleans Cathedral and St. Augustine Church and showcase all the wonderful ways in which New Orleans celebrates the holidays throughout the season.
And helps bring us into the French Quarter, which of course is such a wonderful, important place for the city of New Orleans. Don, over to you.
Well, the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival and Foundation, we are a nonprofit organization that basically came together towards the end of 1969, where a group of business people got together and just similar to what French Quarter Fest went through in its beginning of wanting to encourage tourism and to celebrate our culture. And so our first festival was in 1970 in Armstrong Park and has moved obviously to the fairgrounds and has grown tremendously. We were fortunate to be able to celebrate our 50th anniversary right before the pandemic. But it's been an amazing evolution of how this festival has grown. And I'm very proud in the way that it was originally born with so much of a focus on celebrating our culture, our food culture, all those things that make New Orleans so wonderful.
Right, and I remember certainly those from here remember those early days. Wasn't a crowd like we see behind you right now. It has definitely grown.
It's grown tremendously. I mean, the numbers of people, it's amazing to see how many people really look forward to all of our festivals. Yeah. But for Jazz Fest, the people have been coming for 35 years, staying on couches at their friends' homes. But it's like a ritual to really celebrate New Orleans. And it's also amazing to come across people who moved to New Orleans or their businesses have moved here because of our festivals and Jazz Fest.
I know personally that there's a group of friends that come literally from all over the world. Every April I see them, and I haven't seen them. Wasn't able to see them last year and this year, but hopefully they'll get here in the fall. So let's talk about that. What has happened to both of you guys and everybody who has sponsored these festivals because of this pandemic? Suddenly, let's go back to April of 2020, or actually March. You all had to make the decision beforehand. What did that feel like when you realized we can't do this? Don?
Well, I think it was devastating for all of us, to sort of, having prepared for all this, had all of the, the contracts with the musicians, the production companies, the food vendors, artists had created work to be able to sell at Jazz Fest. And it was just sort of, it knocked the wind out of everybody, just to realize that we can't do our annual celebration. I mean, New Orleans is a town where we thrive and we live for our celebrations. That's what makes us so unique. And so, it was amazing. I mean, the only thing comparable was really Katrina. And I look back on Katrina there was so much talk after Katrina that we couldn't do a jazz fest. And we actually brought all the staff back in, the musicians, and we were able to pull it off. And it was probably the most memorable jazz fest ever. But this was really hard, particularly for our musicians who really depend on our festivals, for their livelihood.
And Emily, I'm sure not an easy decision to have to make last April or March in 2020 not to have the fest.
Absolutely. Well, I think we were confident in our decision. Of course, our festival would have happened right at the beginning of this pandemic, and we knew it was the right thing to do in terms of protecting the health and safety of our community, our musicians, and our attendees. But it was absolutely heartbreaking. Not only professionally, my team had been working for 12 months on an event that we knew was going to be wonderful, but also because we know how much it means to our fans and to our community. The celebration, the coming together, the sort of rituals that we looked forward to every year, we knew weren't going to be able to happen. And we knew it was going to be devastating economically to the businesses that depend on it.
Right.
And the 1,700 local musicians we hire. So, our commitment was to do whatever we could to pivot and to continue to serve our mission and stay ready to come back with live events as soon as it was going to be safe to do so.
And so the decision has been made by you guys both, not this April, again, no festivals, but we're going to do it in the fall. So just sort of walk us through that, how you came to these decisions, Don.
Well, mainly it's just been following, the national pivot into what's going on with the pandemic and everything. But, we had originally hoped, yes, we would love to have done it, this April. But, following everything, the guidelines, that we know that the earliest we can do it really is in October. So, working with city officials, government officials, we've really come to that conclusion. And I think, the entire industry is counting on this happening. All the festivals that we see happening now in October, locally and nationally. But it's been a thoughtful process. I mean, we're still not sure of all the details. What will the festivals actually look like? Will we have to have certain distancing? Different guidelines and everything.
Right.
But it's definitely our intention, like French Quarter Fest and our other festivals, that we really want to get back and doing these wonderful events, in October.
Emily?
Well, like I said, we wanted to remain ready to host our live events and festivals as soon as it would be safe and responsible to do so. So we've been working very closely with city health officials and the mayor's office, taking guidance from them, as well as working with our peers locally and nationally to understand this evolving landscape. So we know that we can't host a French Quarter Festival or a Jazz Fest last minute, and we needed to make a call very early on. How important was it for us to ensure that we had our event this calendar year? Certainly, we never imagined the pandemic would go on for so long, and we wanted to make sure that we could, in fact, have a French Quarter Festival in 2021. So our hope, and I'm very optimistic, is that by the fall, we'll be in a position to do that in a safe, celebratory way, and that's what we're planning for.
Yeah, and boy, everybody's hoping with you, too, because we all want to get back to not just this fun, but get our lives back to normal as much as possible. But because of this, because of the fact that you weren't able to go on with your normal events, what did you do to sort of fill in the void, Emily?
Sure. Well, right away, we wanted to do what we could to continue to support the gig economy and musicians. So we partnered with the New Orleans Business Alliance on a fundraiser for their gig economy fund. We created the Virtual Village, which was really just a page on our website, but doing everything that we could to leverage our platform and our audience to raise awareness of things that the restaurants that might have participated in our culinary lineup and that would have really relied on the income from that. What were they doing to serve meals at home, to encourage takeout? Some of them were feeding hospitality industry workers. So those were some of the things that we did early on. And we very quickly realized it was going to be some time before we got back to live entertainment and in-person events. So we shifted everything from in-person to production to virtual performances and digital content, which, my team has been working on bringing live festivals to New Orleans since 1984. Digital content and video production was an entirely new skill set, but something that we very eagerly dove into. So the first event that we presented digitally was Satchmo Summerfest. It was our 20th anniversary, and we shifted that. We worked with a number of local partners to host 7 days of Satch to celebrate that event. And then, of course, again, for Holidays New Orleans style, we worked with the Cathedral and St. Augustine Church to bring some of the same holiday concerts that we know and love to life virtually.
So just like everybody, you guys had to adjust. Don, you all sort of kept up with some of your regular events in a way, or things that you normally do to help the community.
Right. Well, I mean, it's been amazing how so many of the nonprofits organizations have really come to the aid of our music community and everything. I mean, the crew of Red Beans and Howlin' Wolf and all these great organizations have really, stepped forward and made a big difference. We're very fortunate that we were able to, one of the first things that we did was to kick off a music relief fund where the foundation committed a large sum of money, and then we raised additional funds so that we were able to distribute basically $2 million to musicians, music professionals, the workers in production, black masking Indians, and other cultural tradition bearers. And that's been an amazing process in gathering data and information and working closely with each of these individuals was one of the main things we did. We were also on target to continue our community partnership grants program, which funds, other festivals. It funds music production, recordings, filmmakers, dance companies, theater companies all across Louisiana, and we were able to actually activate that and distribute $1.2 million, which is our annual budget there. But most excitingly, our radio station, WWOZ, was able to really pivot and do these amazing Festing in Places, which have now become sort of an iconic new tradition. And the exciting part was that it allowed all of the fans of New Orleans music and Jazz Fest around the world to really feel like they were hearing and experiencing, particularly when you have a recording of the Neville Brothers from 1983. Yeah. You just feel like you're at the festival. And the other good point was that, over the years, we have, WWOZ has recorded so many performances at Jazz Fest. We also have a large film archive in our archive, and we were able to utilize this rich material. So that was one of the main things that, really kept us going, in addition to doing some, virtual performances and other things.
And of course, Festing in Place is going to happen again this year.
Yes, in a couple days and stuff. It's amazing. It's been great to see, the hard work of the WWOZ staff put it into this and making such a unique experience. And it's been tremendously successful.
It definitely has been, and it's really kept that spirit going. And of course, there are numerous other festivals in the city of New Orleans that also hope to go forward this year. For example, Essence Festival has announced a hybrid approach with virtual and live sessions this summer. Essence and Jazz Fest and French Quarter Festival and all the others have to coordinate with the city before plans can be finalized, recognizing the importance of the festivals to our way of life, also to the revenue the events generate as income for individuals and organizations, along with tax revenue for government. We talked to the point person at City Hall who helps groups make their plans.
My name is Lisa Alexis. I'm the director of the Mayor's Office of Cultural Economy. The Office of Cultural Economy is responsible for supporting, promoting, and undergirding the cultural economy by, 1, creating opportunities for our cultural artists and artisans, 2, stimulating the economy, and 3, preserving the traditions of culture. The City of New Orleans, we have been working from a comprehensive approach. All of our internal departments, such as police, fire, EMS, safety and permits, cultural economy, sanitation, and others, have a coordinated task force within the City of New Orleans, and then we work with the key point of contacts for the events and festival organizers to coordinate and then walk them through the process so that we have an understanding of what needs to be done to support them, as well as them understanding how to move forward with the compliance and guidelines. The primary considerations that are taken are health and public safety is primary. The events, the festivals, and organizations that would like to have an event are really their own contained entity, and in collaboration with the City of New Orleans, work and determine how they will proceed, if they will proceed, and what works for them. Essence Festival, just like Jazz Festival, French Quarter Fest, and so many others, are looking to move forward in a manner that would be compliant with our health guidelines at this time. So I'm believing and hearing that they're going to expand to a hybrid version more than the virtual version of last year that will afford some on-ground activities here in the city of New Orleans that will then be a win for our venue owners, our artists and all, because they will have employability and usage and leasing of their facilities, their buildings and all here in the city. So it's going to create some economic stimulation here locally. Our city has thrived on tourism, and we're going to be expanding even further, but the cultural impact is just great because our cultural industries are key to the employment, the income and revenue of businesses, of the entrepreneurs who are artists, and so hotels, all of it drives the city forward. I'd like everyone to have hope, to get vaccinated, because we want to protect our citizens. As tourism opens up and everyone visits, we want to make sure that we are safe and compliant first, and then we move forward to offer an experience that I know people are chomping at the bits to get to, and our cultural economy is so waiting for everyone to return so that we can give an experience like never before.
And Lisa Alexis says that Essence Fest is currently planning for the last weekend of June and the first weekend of July, but notes that talks are still ongoing before firming up those dates. You know, she also pointed out that the film industry is a really big part of the cultural economy and said that we're really seeing an uptick now in production happening here, which is good. Also that the city had showcased local musicians through virtual performances. And of course, that's a key thing that you guys do, and both of you have noted it already. You really support the musicians. The musicians really in our community depend on these festivals. Emily?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, you know, we're 100% homegrown. We really see our role in the music scene at French Quarter Festival as identifying and showcasing local talent and emerging local talent at that. So we hire 1,700 local musicians. You know, most of the musicians that play at French Quarter Festival could walk or ride their bikes to the stages that they play on, which we think is just wonderful and showcases, you know, the diversity and depth of talent that we have in the city. But there are also local gigging artists. You know, many of them do tour, and many of them rely on weekly gigs at clubs and around the city, and it's great to be able to present them to a broader audience, right, and to really showcase the beautiful culture makers that we have here in the city.
And Don, you know, Jazz Fest has so many music acts over the course of its 2 weekends. Vendors really are a big part of what you guys present as well, both of you.
Well, it's tremendous in any festival, just the number of, you know, the food vendors, and it's fun to sort of think back on just the love that people have for certain foods at Jazz Fest. People look forward to going to certain things and eating things, and you know, it's huge on the economy. I think, you know, when we talk about the music business economy, we really need to be thinking in terms of New Orleans is a live music business economy, and how important these festivals are. And it branches out into also like the craft vendors at all the festivals. Right. I mean, they look forward to that. They create special works, and you know, sort of it's part of their survival in the creative industries and stuff. So, you know, we are a live music economy, and the more festivals, the better. You know, they're well-paying gigs, basically. And we need to continue to support our musicians by increasing the number of these opportunities. Right.
And as you said, you know, the musicians and the vendors all really depend on this. And also, so does the tourism industry. You guys really, really help support that tourism industry, keep those hotels room filled. So that we definitely need your festivals to be mounted. It's real important for us. And we were talking beforehand about how it looks for this fall. Particularly the month of October is just going to be, if all goes well and everybody stays healthy, it's just going to be ablaze with festivals. So Don, give us an idea of how many are going to be happening.
Well, I mean, it's extensive. I mean, every weekend in October is a festival, and even starting into September. So, I think we're going to have our dance cards full, during this time period, and I think the excitement that it's going to build. And again, you mentioned about the tourism economy. Think of the numbers of hotel rooms during, French Quarter Fest. I mean, I remember working in the French Quarter when it first started, and the whole goal of French Quarter Fest was to bring tourism to New Orleans. And how successful has that been? I mean, it's amazing to see the growth. So, we're going to be exploding with a lot of excitement and a lot of creativity and a great deal of celebration.
And I understand Hogs for the Cause actually is going to start in June in Plaquemines Parish. So, it's definitely encouraging. And then other October festivals, of course, kick off with French Quarter Festival. Emily, which other ones did you say? The Fried Chicken Festival is also going to happen?
Well, I hope that we'll see many of the spring festivals that we weren't able to host this year shift to the fall, and I think we want to make sure that the festivals that do usually take place at that time during our calendar, are also celebrated. So we're working really closely with the Treme Fall Fest. They typically take place in the Treme during that first weekend in October, and for us, we wanted to make sure that this was an all ships rise opportunity for our festival ecosystem. So we're excited to work with them and host both of those festivals on our weekend. I think it will be a really great and unique thing for our fans to be able to explore the French Quarter and the Treme neighborhood.
So, Don, for Jazz Fest this fall, I mean, will it look like what we're used to seeing with as many stages and a number of bands, a number of vendors, or are y'all having to maybe slim it down a little bit?
Well, I mean, we're starting off as, a big jazz fest, and that's our plan, to actually have the same number of stages, same number of vendors and everything. That's our goal. And we'll just have to see how things evolve. But I think, the idea is that we want to produce a really high-quality jazz festival for everyone. And that really means, presenting the rich, expanse of culture and traditions. I mean, when you go to Jazz Fest, you see Mardi Gras Indian parades. You go to a Native American village, which is pretty unique in our country. I think, I'm very proud of the fact that Jazz Fest has done such a broad and rich, showcasing of all of the many diverse cultures and talents that we have in this community. So I think just like French Quarter Fest, we're hoping that we're going to look exactly like we did, 2 years ago.
And then you're going to have to turn around and do it again in 6 months. So, Emily, let me let you touch on that, too. Are you guys hoping really to stage what we usually see for French Quarter Festival in this fall?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's going to be a very familiar French Quarter Festival scene. Of course, there are lots of things that we're going to be doing behind the scenes to, ensure everybody's safety and to work with the city to make sure that the event meets all of our, COVID compliance. But in terms of activating the riverfront and the French Quarter with live music, it's going to look very much the same. There are some minor pivots. We're reducing the number of indoor stages we might have, for example. And we hope that that's just a temporary shift while we come out of this pandemic. And
that's it. We are coming out of, hopefully, God willing, this pandemic. And so I think everybody certainly understands what, you're aiming to do this, but it is also dependent on what the situation is. Your hopes for other events that you do, like the holidays in New Orleans, are you hopeful that that's going to be happening this holiday season?
Absolutely. I really do feel, the city has encouraged us to think about the summer as a transition time. And so we're already seeing live entertainment come back to New Orleans clubs on a small scale. And the city's been great about working with the musicians and clubs to do that in a way that's safe for visitors and our musicians. And I think that the next wave is going to be larger events. We're going to see our festivals come back, but certainly by the late fall, winter, I really hope that we'll be mostly back to life as usual.
Right. And Don, you guys do more than Jazz Fest, and then also the other assistance that you give to the musicians in the area. You have other events, too.
Right. We were very excited about, actually bringing back our Congo Square Rhythms Festival and our Treme Creole Gumbo Festival, both in November. And those have grown into being very large festivals and 2 stages employing a great deal of musicians and food vendors and everything. So we're really excited right now to be working on that, as well as looking forward into March, where we would traditionally do our Louisiana Cajun Zydeco Festival. So, we're planning on that. This summer, we're actually planning to do some mini versions of those events as concerts throughout June and July.
Okay. And what about the barbecue festival? Do you think you'll have that next year? I know you usually have it in October.
It's usually
right?
October,
Yeah.
so October's pretty full. So we're trying to think through what is the best strategy, whether to bring it back in March or to wait, until the October traditional time slot. But we really want to bring that back.
Because all goes well, there's going to be a lot of stuff to do in October, ending, of course, with the Voodoo Fest. All right, as we're wrapping this up, just some quick closing thoughts from the both of y'all, about 30 seconds or so each. Emily, let's go with you first.
Well, again, I think Lisa Alexis put it eloquently. We are thrilled to come back to live entertainment, but we want everybody in our community to stay safe. So doing everything that we can as a community to come back as soon as possible. And please do come get engaged in the events. You can really help us have a successful event as a volunteer. And by participating in all the ways that our corporate partners and our volunteers help make the festivals possible.
Don?
I think just the excitement of all of our festivals coming back, and the importance of the festivals to everyone, particularly the musicians and the creative industries, that it's had such a devastating effect that it's time to sort of turn this around and really get back to business of being the city that celebrates itself best.
It definitely, I think, gives us all hope, looking forward to the fall, even the summer. As you said, some activities are going to begin. Gives us hope that we are getting past this. But, of course, we do have to stay careful and safe and just keep hoping that everything will be happening in that very, very busy October and beyond of 2021. Thanks so much, Emily and Don, French Quarter Festival, Jazz Fest. Thanks so much for sharing all this information with us, and we'll be seeing you in October. Thank you all, too, for joining us, and we'll be back next month with a new episode of Living in the New Normal. Have a good night.